second.
This is the BAM Podcast with Malcolm Springer.
Scott Poole, how you doing?
Great, man. How are you?
It's nice to be in the same room with a Missouri fellow like
Absolutely.
me.
We're taking over Nashville,
So
one Missourian at a time.
So Scott here is a paranormal investigator, right?
The American Ghost Project, the focus of our team, along with being paranormal investigators, we're also historical preservationists. And in that focus, we want to tell the story of the place or the person or the area that we investigate. So there's a history along with that. We want to try and push that history forward.
Oh, I got you.
It also allows us to connect with the spirits that may still be there by knowing the history of each location.
Okay, I got so many. I'm excited about this podcast.
Good.
Because I'm
get excited.
I know,
this is fun stuff.
I really asked you a lot of crazy questions last night. I know it was
it's fine.
out of hand. Well, first of all, let's start with how you got started. How did you get started in this, and what led you to doing the paranormal investigating, hunting for ghosts?
Well, long story short, the American Ghost Project, AGP, is named after my father, Anthony Gerald Poole. He was a physician, obstetrician, and gynecologist in the southeast Missouri Sikeston area for over 30 years.
That's awesome, man.
And with that, he had a lot of prestige that came with delivering over 8,000 babies. So I wanted to carry his name forward. I'm not a physician or a doctor myself. After he passed on December 25th of 2014, he proved to us that our energy goes somewhere. And we had a paranormal experience shortly after he passed. We had continued paranormal experiences or high strangeness occurrences in the home.
So you did have a paranormal experience from your dad?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to ask you, because my dad, I had the same thing happen. It was funny. I felt him there for 3 days. And then after 3 days, he was gone. I tell you the way I look at it. And okay, now this might be crazy. I know everybody thinks I'm crazy anyway, because I wouldn't have the Bigfoot Aliens music podcast if I wasn't a little bit wacky.
Or normal, depending on how you look at it.
Normal, depending on how you look at it.
Actually wanting to find answers for things that are clearly happening.
And clearly need an explanation.
Absolutely.
My thing is when I get on an airplane to go to New York or LA or to do my business, there's always 3 seats on one side of the aisle, and there's always 3 seats on the other side of the aisle.
That's just for balance.
But did you ever think that maybe that's the case? Did you ever think that maybe you have to wait around for your plane or your train or whatever that thing is in that other dimension to get on to go to where you're going?
It's a possibility.
I'm just saying it's a weird thing. Anyway, let's get back on to Go Your Ghost Hunting. Anyway, because I've always got these crazy theories, because this is what happens. I have a brain that I would sit in a room for 30 years trying to make things sound good. So I've had plenty of time to be by myself and think about these things, you know. So
this is a safe place that you can bounce ideas off
exactly,
of. Right.
Exactly.
No judgment. No judgment-free zone.
So that's how you got started. So, and then after that, how did you carry on? I'm really curious.
That's a good question. So we got a 5-year gap between the event with my father. So you wonder, why did it take us that long? It never really occurred to me that I have the gift that I do. I didn't know, to be honest with you, that I was an empath until we started getting into these investigations. Now that I know that I have a gift and that I can communicate with spirits, or that I can see them, or not see them, but I can sense them and I can get images, it's made it a little easier, obviously, to expand on our investigative techniques.
Okay, so explain to everyone what an empath is.
Well, what an empath is there's several different kinds of empaths or mediums, or and that line of thinking. If my ability is pretty straightforward. If I touch the lowest part of the structure that's connected to the foundation or to the soil around it, and concentrate of whatever area that I'm drawn to, I don't initially just go down to a basement and grab a wall. I'll go down into the sublevel of a building or a structure and kind of get a lay of the land and feel. And wherever I'm led to I listen to my gut and my instincts. And then that's where I can, and I've done it in front of team members and individuals that need our help. And I'm able to connect with whatever spirit is trying to communicate with the owners of the property. And we're able to get answers because we need to have a spiritual handler on this side. And on that side, you have a spiritual hand. The spiritual communication's got to be a two-way street. Otherwise, you're just listening. You're not being a receptor. So there's somebody on the team that's got to be that receptor, and that's me.
So have you come upon like places that you got the name of the actual?
Absolutely. When we investigated Brushy Mountain State Pen in Petros, Tennessee, and this was just right around a month ago, when we investigated that location, which is also known as the end of the line.
So is that where the Green Mile was filmed?
That is not where the Green Mile is.
Okay. I'm totally confused on
that's
all that
okay.
stuff.
Shawshank Redemption was filmed at Brushy Mountain State Pen.
Oh, wow.
You got the Green. Yeah, the Green Mile was actually shot at,
Here,
or parts of it were shot at
in Nashville.
the Tennessee State Pen, the old one that is here in Nashville or close to it. So James Earl Ray, for most of his penal life, if you would, most of the time that he was in the penitentiary after he was prosecuted as the assassin for Martin Luther King, spent most of his time in a block or a house of Brushy Mountain State Pen on the first floor. We got several indications that James Earl Ray was trying to contact us. And we went with the mentality of, listen, you've done your time on this earth. You've already been judged by man. It's time for you to let go and let God take over and just release your soul and accept Jesus in your heart. And that's part of the reason why our cross is in the middle of our name. We're not there to judge. We're not there to go after them and antagonize and upset anybody, living or dead. It's not our goal. It's not our focus. We come at them with respect and allow them to communicate with us. And nothing negative. Something didn't happen to one of our team members. He ended up leaving the team over the investigation at Brushy.
Oh, my goodness. Are you serious?
He broke the cardinal rule of our team, which is going in and investigating on your own. We don't encourage anyone, even if you're a senior core member of AGP, don't go in a building or an area by yourself. You're that much more vulnerable to spiritual interaction. They're a lot more powerful than we give them credit for, whether they be dark entities, good entities, it doesn't matter. If they want to communicate, they see your body as a battery, all that electromagnetic energy, and it's just right. They're predators. So they see you, they're going to come after you. And that's what happened. He started coughing, came out of B block, which was one of the worst blocks. B house, B block at Brushy is where they held death row, the pedophiles, the real violent criminals were on B block. And he came out of the back of the building, started coughing, and coughed up black tar.
What?
Yeah. So this stuff is heavy, man. It's really heavy in it, but it's you. If you go with us, and I would encourage that you and Sidetrack go with us on an investigation or 2 or 6 or 12, but get your mind right, get your spirit right, get yourself wrapped in the blanket of whatever will protect you, and understand that this is serious business that we do. This is not a game. It's not a joke. And make sure that you go at them with respect, because let me put it to you this way. You're a spirit,
right?
And you own the studio, but you're gone. And now some douchebag with a recorder's walking in. You don't know who he is. He didn't have permission to come in. But if you go in and say, "Hey, do you mind if we sit down and have a conversation? Let's talk about your life. What did you do before? Let's talk about your platinum records, your diamonds, your golds. Who did you write for? Who'd you mix for? Who'd you produce or audio engineer? Who did you interact with in your life. Let's talk about that. And that level of an interaction will open that spirit up to be like, well, he's not here to just find out if things are going bump in here.
Right.
It's a different level of respect that we come at the spiritual, the paranormal, that some of these other teams, by the way, 20 years in the military, I train my team members to not run the other way when something happens, because something's bound to happen. You don't run the other way. We're there to capture the paranormal evidence, not run from it. And you watch these other shows that are on YouTube, and they've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers and views, and they're running the other way.
Right. Well, that's, I think, though, for the Hollywood effect.
I get it.
And
it's just not us.
No, but that's the thing, is like, that's why we won't give it away on here on the podcast about what our plans are or what we're trying to plan.
There are some really neat things coming.
And
Stay tuned.
And you know what? And I'm hoping that I'm a part of every bit of it, because I want to learn. Okay, here's my thing. When it comes to ghosts, and I want to. I know this was a question I was going to ask you later on in the podcast, because this is kind of a real serious question.
It's a good segue, though.
What Is how do you relate, though, being a Christian? Because I know you're a Christian. We talked about that last night at dinner. We talked about your spiritual beliefs, but a lot of the same beliefs. I don't think God is so serious about a lot of things, I have my theory on ghosts, and some of them are kind of really weird, but I want to learn more, because, I look at it as an analog tape. I told you about the world spins around, and it's all it has a race head, and the playback head is what we're in right now. And where the world, when it turns and it erases, sometimes it just don't erase in some spots. Right. And usually where the tape, okay, let's say it's analog tape, spikes, like when there's a death.
Sure.
Or there's a tragedy.
A tragic death, too.
And that spike, that means there's too much level that got the tape, and it prints through and it never erases, and that's what we see as ghosts. I mean, that is was my theory. After last night talking to you, I thought a lot about it on the way home. Talked to my wife about it, and I'm just like, well, okay, maybe I'm not right on the analog tape thing, because I can see God going, okay,
you're on the right track, because what you've taken is you're relating to the paranormal or high strangeness events based on your experience.
Well, just from being an engineer,
sure. And that's not a bad science. Looking at it scientifically is a fantastic way at looking at it, because we need that empirical data. Those metric points. We need to be able to scientifically prove the paranormal is happening, and in order to do that, we need to first understand who is it or what is it that's walking around upstairs at night. Is that an actual ghost, or are we talking about a spiritual presence? Because they're two completely different things.
Really, so that's interesting to me, because I've caught. There was a record, it was the Micah Evans Project, when he was singing in the ISO booth, and this was downtown Portageville, Missouri. I had the top floor, I had the highest building, the thing. Boy, I thought I was awesome. But I didn't. I went from a big studio to being in a small studio, but it was actually a huge place. It was just not really a studio. We just had gear everywhere. And I was recording the record, and he's singing a vocal, and all of a sudden I hear this. Why are you here? In the middle of a vocal. And I'm like,
it's awesome.
Guys, is that real? I mean, this can't be print through like what my theory is on the whole freaking ghost thing to begin with.
No, you captured an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon.
Exactly. It's like, so I guess it's the same concept, but I'm saying, though, on analog tape, we would hear stuff like that all the time. And I'm like, oh, that's where we hit the tape too hard with this vocal, and we were trying to get the freaking level. So don't worry about it. Whoever's out there singing, we got this, Just turn the level down on the mic pre and the compressor, or compress them a little bit more, and we're off to the races,
Sure.
And the tape compression does the rest. But still, there would be times where you would hear things, and you'd be like, hang on, what is that? And see, I'm a big audio guy. Of course, I would listen to everything to the point where it's driven me insane into some points. I had to not pay attention to things. Like last night when we did that here at the studio, I heard something nobody else did. But that's not unusual. Not just for me, but now there's a drummer, Jason Bowl. We did this whole test up there in Washington State, and he heard something completely different than we did.
Wow.
And so I'm just saying, it's like, But let's get back to what.
Well, getting back to what you were saying
about
your theory on the analog tape.
Well, I want to talk to you about too. Your how you relate Christianity to what you're doing as a ghost hunter.
Let's get the first one out of the way first.
Okay.
So the first part of your question and how you view high strangeness or paranormal events happening. Have you ever heard of the stone tape theory?
No.
Okay. Stone tape theory is pretty simple. Energy that we create can get trapped. Say a tragic death and or event occurs on a property. That energy is released either in a scream, a shotgun blast, or maybe it's something just as simple as an older man coming home from work, jingling his keys, setting his keys down on his counter, and going upstairs and taking his shoes off. And that's that whole action repeating over and over and over and over. And that event gets trapped in the wood, the fibers of the wood, and certain kinds of rocks like granite.
Yes, that's definitely a scientific thing
and that's something that we can empirically prove that does repeat itself. So in the purest definition of ghost, we've got a residual haunt. There's no way of interacting with a residual haunt. It's just on a playhead repeating itself. And a certain amount of energy that you bring into that structure, that home, or wherever you are, your energy may release that energy to repeat itself.
Gotcha.
An intelligent haunt is just like it suggests. We are speaking to, interacting with something that is not on, we say not of this plane of existence, but they have to be on this plane of existence if we're interacting with them. They may not be in the spectrum of light that we can see, which is limited at best, and or hear with our, because you already know what the human ear can hear.
A lot if it's there, if it's got the right, yeah.
Yeah, so they're speaking out of what the human ear can hear, and or they're existing in the plane of, or the spectrum of light that we can't see. That's the reason why we use infrared or full spectrum cameras, or digital audio recorders that will record above and below the threshold of the human ear.
It's amazing to me though that's it's all waves, whether it be sound waves, whether it be what's an EMF waves, right? Is that
electromagnetic frequency that we can detect?
But that's a pulse, not a wave, right? Theoretically, it's just energy, flat out energy.
Yeah.
You walk into a room, it's like you feel that it's dead or you feel it's alive.
Right.
It's kind of like...
and that could be a preceptor to something paranormal, a high strangeness event occurring, because all of our equipment will start to go off. We'll hear a noise or an event will occur on our spirit box or something will happen. We'll get evidence and then it dies down again. Sometimes that stuff happens what we call a spiritual wave. It'll go up just like an audio wave will, and then come back. It would crest and then come back down, and then it dies down again.
It's so awesome. Well, because it's like this all started because of Mr. Bill, because he gave me a Ghost Hunter app, and that app, I guess you turned him onto that.
And we're talking about Bill Bailey from
we're talking about
Commerce.
Bill Bailey, yes, and
hell of a guy, kind of a goofy guy, but hell of a.
No, but he showed me this whole thing. He lights this thing up here in the studio, and that thing starts lighting up there by the desk, and I'm like, "Whoa, is this real?" And he's like, he explains to me the whole how it works and everything, and then I was on a podcast with Cordell Winter and JP Spitz, and for their band, and I'm telling them about it, and I'm showing them this, and I make a joke, and I'm freaking sitting there, basically, I'm heckling the ghost. I'm heckling the freaking ghost, and the thing was the thing was on silent, and the thing is crammed up there, and I went, "Oh my God, this is a sign we need to do this more often about the freaking paranormal."
Well, the studio is haunted.
To get you in here for everything. The studio's way haunted.
We just proved it last night that the studio is haunted. We possibly caught an EVP that we're going to go over later, and would be nice to put that EVP that we captured on this podcast so folks can see that no matter what. No matter where you are, if you have the right equipment and you know how to interact with the spirit world, and you're open to it and willing for that communication to happen, you can catch that interaction on audio. You can capture it.
I want to go back to that question I had before we all started this, and I kind of got us off track. I want to go on to some of the gear you use first, and then I'm going to come back to the other question.
The Christianity question?
Yeah, we'll come back to that later.
Sure.
Because now we're on to the gear, because last night I saw some gear. What all do you use? And you don't have to mention every piece of gear, but
everything.
What's your most powerful piece of gear, though?
The best piece of equipment. I'm not a passive investigator. The digital audio recorders are great because they'll record above and below the spectrum of the human hearing, and then that DAC process happens, and now we're able to the digital to analog conversion or compression happens, and we can hear it and playback. I understand the technology, but it's more passive. Now I've asked a question, I've gotten an answer, but I'm no longer interacting currently with that spirit. What I really like are live EVP capture, and that you can get from a spirit box, and they're nice little handheld devices. They don't cost that much. You can get them at Ghost Stop or wherever, and they allow you to sweep through white noise frequency. They look for the exact opposite of radio stations. Hook it up with a small speaker or maybe even a sound suppressor to get rid of some of that white noise. Open your mind up a little bit, and you may interact with someone that's...
It's called a what? It's called a spirit box?
SB7 spirit box. They're nice little handheld devices and quite affordable. A very powerful piece of equipment.
And do you ever get one of those little balls of light that,
Oh, absolutely. One of the best
on
pieces
cameras?
of equipment best pieces of as I'm talking about this, hopefully we're going to show this in the podcast, but one of our greatest pieces of evidence was in the downtown Sikeston City Jail in downtown Sikeston, Missouri. The old Sikeston City Jail, we had a static camera set up in the old booking room. What? And as Mama Joe walks past the camera, and another young lady that I believe her name was Ashley, she used to be in dispatch there. Mama Joe actually said, we don't ever go in this room because there's another adjoining room to dispatch. That's like their server room. We don't ever go in here because nothing ever happens. And if it does happen, it may be false positives because there's a lot of electromagnetic energy in that room already because the servers are still running. So as they're walking through there, shortly after that, a tumbling orb-like light anomaly comes out of the wall, undulating, tumbling across the screen, following them outside of the booking room. John, my nephew, we were live on Facebook and took a break. We sat down at base camp, which was on the first floor of the Sikeston City Jail, and saw this thing because we were at base camp. That's one of our security cameras, and we have a monitor upstairs.
Right.
Saw this thing live, and I lost my mind because I couldn't even get out what I was trying. I was like, "Can you? What just happened? What was that?" Because we had seen light anomalies before. We're like, okay, that could be dust. Those could be orbs. I don't know what that was. I can't explain that.
So how?
And I'll show it to you later, and it's going to blow your mind because it's going to be like,
oh, I can't wait to see it.
What is that?
So, is it scary?
Oh no, it's exciting. Do
you get scared? Okay, that's a kind of.
I'll get to that.
Okay,
but to the true paranormal investigator out there that understands what it is that you're interacting with, I feel like that little 8-year-old boy again, coming down the stairs on Christmas morning, and every single investigation that happens, every little piece that we get is another gift from God, because all of this interaction is coming from God.
Okay, there you go. That answers my other question.
That answers your other question based off the Christianity element to it.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm a
awesome.
strong believer in the Christian faith, and you do not have to be necessarily a Christian to do this line of work. There are plenty of Buddhists and Hindus or Hindi out there. There are some of the best fearless I have the highest level of respect for Muslims that do this, because they are absolutely shrouded in the protection of Allah, and they go in by themselves and they run after whatever it is that's occurring, and they're so impressive. I don't know if I'll ever get to that level, because they are so fearless.
Don't they call that the jinn?
Yeah, well, they are going after. See, that's their thing, is that if they're going after what they think is evil, they're charged by Allah and the Quran and by Muhammad to get rid of them off of the planet, and they take that very seriously.
So it is jinn.
It could be. And see here, here's the theory. The thing about jinns, genie in the bottle,
right,
the whole 9 yards.
Right. It's where
neither good nor bad. They have the choice. They're neither good nor bad. Okay. They choose how to interact with us. And just because you're walking through somewhere and an object moves, don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. That could be a spirit who's using their electromagnetic energy to get you away from an area that could be bad. So there are protective spirits out there. And there are also spirits that, see, I know from muscle memory how much energy it takes to pick up this cup of coffee.
Right.
If you're a new spirit, or if you just have not been trained or do not know how much electromagnetic energy it takes to pick up this cup of coffee, it may go slinging across the across the wall. Now we got poltergeist activity. Now we got a poltergeist in our world. We're going, why did that cup of coffee just go slinging across the room? Well, maybe someone was trying to interact with it and they did not know. They put too much into it, and it goes flying across the room. Or you get this little jerk, and it's not enough. They're trying to learn how to interact with that piece of the physical world.
Like the video camera in the control room, picking up the chair, just barely moving.
Yeah.
I mean,
could have just brushed past it.
But
or trying to interact with it and didn't have enough energy.
And I got to find that video. I have it on my phone recorded, or it goes up to a thing in the Cove or whatever, records it, whatever.
It's up in the cloud somewhere.
Yes, right? I have to find it. I have to find it because I know around the date, because it should tell us a thing about it, was the night we put the camera in. So, and my sister saw it and she was like, "Whoa!" Ashley's like, "Whoa! What do we? That's ridiculous." And we heard the crinkling of the paper right beside the camera.
Listen, we have heard pages turn in an old church in Bloomfield, Missouri, and I'm sure you know where Bloomfield is.
Oh yeah.
So there's an old first Christian church that saw its last congregation somewhere around 21 years ago. The gospel Bibles, the hymnals are still in the pews. The Bibles are still there. And we got the opportunity. That's still the key to the building. Wow. They trust me enough. They trust us and our team that we're respectful. We'll go in there anytime we want and investigate this beautiful church. It's falling apart, but it's absolutely. I'll show you pictures, and you're just going to be your mouth is going to drop. It's such a beautiful church.
But why would they let it fall apart like that? Why don't they redo it?
I ask myself the same question. I'm not here to judge one way or the other. It'd probably take a lot of money. They did put a new roof on it, so it's no longer leaking. They patched the roof, so it's no longer taking on water damage.
I know this is off this. Did the church congregation move somewhere?
Possibly. That's a good possibility. I don't know.
To me, it's like. Anyway, I don't want to.
Well, what's great is being live on Facebook,
right,
and hearing pages turn, and either a Bible or a hymnal, and we're all like, "What was that? Was that? Because that's a distinct sound.
That's a very distinct sound, and it's off a certain frequency that you can't deny." And
it did it twice.
So
it's just it see, that to me is exciting. I mean, other folks are like, "Hey, let's go to a bar, let's go to a club, or let's go to a water park." To me, you stick me in a haunted mansion for the weekend, and I'm in my happy place, or in my studio, I'm in my happy place, going over evidence.
Do you feel like the resonant frequency that the paranormal, the ghosts, the spirits, or whatever, let off a certain frequency that does move things? Because you were talking about moving things, because everything has a resonant frequency. And unfortunately, Hitler was the one who had his scientists experiment on that, on humans, and that's how we often break up riots. Is they have a big old huge thing that they put a frequency on a crowd, and everybody shits their pants, and it just goes away.
Yeah, there's infrasound that we can get into, and that may be.
But do they let a frequency off, like the EMF thing? I mean, I'm just curious because if they are moving things, okay, if they are moving things, then they're using the resonant frequency of the object that they're moving.
It has to.
That's my theory on it anyway.
Because everything's made up of atoms, and this is vibrating at a frequency even though it's solid.
Exactly.
So it takes a certain frequency, an audio frequency waveforms to move said object. So they have to be existing in some kind of frequency.
I want to apologize because everything in my life has to do with sound.
That's fine.
And I don't know why, but that's my life. So it's what I've always studied. And like there are certain bridges that has blown up and killed people. That definitely was a frequency because the wind hit the thing just right. The resonant frequency happened and it blew up the bridge. And I'm thinking that
there is something known as the ghost frequency.
Okay, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah, we are studying, paranormal investigators are trying to study that and get to where we can hone in on that frequency. And maybe that's something that you and Sidetrack can help the American Ghost Project do, is to locate as audio engineers, producers, mixers.
Oh, I'm ready to go, baby. I'm ready to go, baby. Yeah, I'm ready to really get in.
And if you think about what we could do in theory, is if we had that frequency, if you played it back at them, would they then become visible?
See, that's what you read my mind because
right,
that's what I was thinking.
Bounce off of them at that frequency, and now we're seeing them. I told Bill and Rob.
I love it.
Right, I told Bill and Rob on the way here, if I had a dream, like Martin Luther King had a dream. Everybody has a dream about what they're trying to do with the world, or how they want to interact with the current world. If I had a dream, and I'm not an activist like he is, I'm not trying to compare myself to MLK because he's way up there on the scale.
I wouldn't have been so easy on his ghost. I'm just telling you because
not his ghost, his assassin.
Well, his assassin is what I meant. I'm sorry, because I grew up around some men that were by his side all the time, and I did. I was around Benny Maybone. And people like that were with him, you know.
I appreciate that. It's just not my. It's not my room to judge.
I grew up around people who was friends and was there with everything. But anyway, we won't get up on Martin Luther King because one of these days I do want to do a podcast about him because I think.
Well, speaking of MLK,
I think if he was alive today, the world would be a better place still. But anyway, I'll shut up.
Here's what we could do if we found the ghost frequency. Is what I was telling Rob and Bill on the way here. My dream is to sit down like you and I are right now. If we found that frequency and we were able to hone in on it somehow and have that conversation with MLK or Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Madison, Monroe, you name them, there's no reason why, if God is allowing this communication to happen, if he is allowing it, if the creator, he, she, it, if he is, I'm going to use masculine pronouns because that's just how I talk. But if he is allowing it, if the creator is allowing this communication to happen, then why wouldn't he allow a genuine conversation with somebody very important in the past? Because we need MLK now more than ever.
More than ever.
We need him to be able to speak to this nation. And I'm just using him as an example because he was uniting the country. And he was on the verge of becoming that conduit that would unite the country, the blacks and the whites, and bring us all together, the whites and the minorities. He wasn't just speaking for blacks. He was speaking about minorities in general.
Oh, he was for everybody. He wanted us to do what Jesus told us to do, and that's to love people and forgive people, and let's move on. You know, it's time to move on. It's not time to reminisce about how bad what people was to people. The Irish got done bad. Blacks got done bad. I mean, everybody's gotten done bad in some I mean, everybody's relative at some point, I mean, and back in Greece, man, they freaking enslaved freaking all kinds of people to be.
Yeah, we weren't the only ones. I get it.
But anyway, back to ghosts, because I've got to ask a couple. I got so many. I mean, you could talk all day long.
Oh, I'm sure we could.
But I could do 6
We got
hours
several episodes that right here.
But no, and I don't want to get off too far. Let's get back to where, because I want to talk about you as a paranormal investigator. And it's funny because you are also, in places that are historic places. Where did you get the most activity? And where did you ever get scared, or not scared, but did you ever get too excited to the point where you're like, oh, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. You know what I mean? Because that's how I feel like when I'm recording a singer. Oh, somebody's in the room and they say something in the control room, ask me a crazy question, and Jackson's going, shut the hell, he's going, shut the hell up, and then trying to get him to shut up, and he's bothering me, and then I'm turning around, and all of a sudden I lose my vibe. Is it that way with the ghost hunt thing? Is it that way?
It can, and there are, like, if I'm doing an Estes method, and an Estes method is the spirit box session with earbuds in, and then on top of the earbuds, we've got noise canceling headphones, or like what you would take out of range when you go shooting, those kind of headphones. They're not really headphones. They're hearing protection covers, basically, for your ears that don't plug into anything. They're not battery operated. Then I put a blindfold on. So now I've got sensory deprivation of sight and sound. That enables me to focus on the void itself. And while we're doing this Estes method session, Estes/Gansfeld experiment is what it's technically called. You're on the other side asking questions. I can't hear you. I'm only repeating what I hear from the spirit box. The interaction that I'm getting should coincide with what you're asking. If we're linking up properly. The thing that you don't do...
Through the ghost?
Yeah, I'm the conduit now. The thing that you don't do and you will never do, no matter what happens. I don't care if Abraham Lincoln's ghost shows up and sits down beside me. Don't grab me. Don't touch me while I'm under. I will come back out of it on my own. That's happened before, and as a general rule of thumb in our team, once you're what we call under, you're the only one that can bring yourself out of it, unless you've gone so far where you need to be pulled back out. And some of our sessions have gone over an hour, and you don't want to be under that long, no matter how strong you think you are. There's something called a paranormal hangover that can happen. It's the same thing, same feeling as a general hangover and drinking too much from the night before. They will wear you out quick. They will drain your spiritual energy, because now they're using you as the conduit. And I've done 2 sessions in one night. Do not recommend that. As strong as I am spiritually, I'm done. I have to wrap it up. I have to go.
Do you consider yourself a medium? Is that what you would call yourself? And do you believe?
No, I don't use the word medium. I feel like mediums, and I may be off on the definition, but if I would consider someone a medium, that's someone that can see them, hear them, speak to them on a regular basis.
And do you believe in that?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I have a friend that has someone.
What they have done is they have honed their third eye chakra, and have done the exercises and gone to those next levels and focused their energy and their frequency to be able to communicate. They're on the ghost frequency, if you want to call it that, as human receptors. Okay. There are people out there that have done it naturally and don't have any need for any kind of training. They're that, and that's God's design. I mean, if this was demonic or bad, I mean, we are God's creation, so it can't be bad. Right. God is allowing this to happen. Maybe it's to be able to communicate to the other side, or to those that have gone on, as a warning to others, or to help them communicate to their lost loved ones, to allow the physical us that are left, because that's what funerals are for. They aren't for the dead, they're for the living, to help us manage the death itself and to move forward day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute if we have to. But that interaction, and those folks that can do that and connect you with your lost loved ones, don't dismiss them, because those are the ones that are going to help you move on from that incremental loss.
Okay, I got another question. You never told me where your most experience was. I mean, was it in Commerce, Missouri?
It's probably at the Anderson Historical Home in Commerce, Missouri.
Okay.
The level of interaction that we've had there, like I said, our team goes at each investigation with respect, because what energy you push out into the universe, you're going to get it back tenfold. And if you think that, if you truly believe that, and you come at them with, my name is Scott Poole, I'm with the American Ghost Project, or I'm Malcolm Springer, I'm buddies with Scott Poole, I don't mean you any harm. We're going to come in, we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask permission to enter your beautiful home. This is just gorgeous. And the Anderson home is, I'm not exaggerating, it is, one of the chairs there is pre-Revolutionary War. So we're talking old stuff.
That's super old.
And to be able to sit in and interact with history like that, the nerd in me goes nuts. And I am so comfortable with the spiritual presences in that home that I've slept in their beds and had zero happen, because they allow us, because we're like family to them. They're like family to me now. We've had so much good, positive energy and interaction with the spirits that are at the Anderson. I'm not saying they're stuck. I believe that God is allowing that interaction to happen, and that may be their heaven. They're still existing and interacting with their family and eating breakfast and fixing dinner and doing whatever they do. And maybe that's their heaven. That home was their heaven. Why would God be like, no, you got to come up here and be up here in the clouds? And you know what I mean? I don't think it works that way. I think that heaven can be wherever it is for you.
Well, at dinner, we talked a little bit about that, and like Einstein's theory on the 11
Absolutely.
dimensions. And
so you've got that, the theory of the 11 dimensions.
But what's scary is me and you could be sitting right in the middle of a street, in the middle of a city, in another dimension. It's pretty funny. But
yeah,
I think that it could happen like that. But
I just hope we don't get hit by a...
I'm trying to learn, and I want you and with the help of God, helping me figure out like where this is at, because it's all everybody wants to know.
Yeah, we were talking about that on Way Back from Breakfast. It's
Yes,
like it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, agnostic, or a Christian, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist. Everybody wants to know what happens after we die. And I don't have those answers. I'm just saying, the further down the rabbit hole that we go, the more questions I have than answers. I've been able to answer some of those questions, but the further down this mystery hole, this spiritual journey that we're all individually on, and I told my team members this, I feel like I'm Morpheus on the movie The Matrix. I always envision myself as Neo.
No, but that's funny, because that's
Neo is
how I
awesome.
picture you,
But Morpheus and his voice that he speaks in the Neo. I'm going to
blue pill or the red
I'm going
pill.
to show the blue pill, the red pill. I'm going to show you the door, and you've got to go. I can't do his voice, but I can only show you the door. You're gonna have to be the one that goes through it, and it's stuck with me my whole life. It's such a profound statement, but just like each individual team member that's on the American Ghost Project, and if you joined or became part of our group or whatever, you and Sidetrack, you have to understand that I can't help you spiritually every single time. Some of these battles have to be fought on your own and in your own world and your own time. That you got to go through each stage on your own, and it's all dependent on the person that's going through each stage. They may be different, and maybe it's a different path for me than it will be for you.
I gotta admit, I'm nervous about the whole thing. I don't want you to leave me alone in a room to spend the night there.
No, that's Ghost Adventures, and
that's not going to happen with me.
And I'm going to name drop those guys. We don't investigate like they do. We just a different style. I'm not monkey see, monkey do, and that's not a racially derived term in my opinion, but you see one monkey at a zoo, and then another monkey will basically mirror what that other one is doing, and you've seen it. Like zoos will show that and showcase that. I'm just saying, along those lines of thinking, and I've been an understudy to Brian Cano. Brian Cano was on the show Historical haunted collector, and he's also now currently on Paranormal Caught on Camera. Brian Cano studied under John Zaffis. John Zaffis is the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren of Conjuring fame.
Oh,
so I'm not just out here willy nilly making
I gotta
this
say,
up.
man, the Conjuring thing, man, when I figured out that it was something that was based on true happenings, it's
a completely different vibe. You're like, wait a second, this happened. She elevated.
Yeah.
She lifted up off of her chair at that house and got thrown into the other room while they're doing a seance. I mean, some of the things that happened with Ed and Lauren, they've got a photo of one of the investigations they did, and hopefully during post we can show the photo of one of the investigations they did back in the 60s of one of the girls levitating in their bedroom. She's levitating.
Right now, let's do that, and let's take a short break for a second. I got to use the bathroom really bad.
Sounds good to me.
Let's take a short break because I want to come back. I got so many more questions. Not too big ones. Yeah, I got some big questions.
That's fine.
Anyway, let's take a break and we'll come right back.
Okay.
I like doing a hand clap. I need one of those. Freaking
I can get you a clacker. It's not a big deal. We've got one. Works off our grease pencil.
Okay, let's
that we never use.
Let's go back to this. Okay, so The Conjuring.
Yeah,
The Conjuring is based on a true events, right?
True events, based on actual events.
That is terrifying.
Absolutely.
These two people. What was their names again?
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Warren. Yes, sir.
So
they're basically the grandfathers.
Are they still alive?
No.
Okay, I have to ask this: does the Conjuring movies, did they not scare you a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, you know all about those folks, and did she really find?
She was a medium, first of all.
But she really found that little girl that died, right? She really found.
Yeah.
She found the body.
Yeah. I have actually wanted to work with police using my talents to assist them if possible. That's another dream of mine, is being able to warm up some of these cold cases, so to speak, and locate and give closure to some of these families. That'd be an absolute,
right.
Like, I'm done. I've reached the pinnacle.
Well, because I saw William Shatner had this thing on this meeting, or this lady who was at the Minute Stare at Goats. They were the guys that, what do they call those things?
They,
the military used them.
Yeah, CIA was
remote viewing.
Yeah, they were involved in, back in the 60s and 70s. They were doing a remote viewing project using telekinesis and telepathy or telepathic abilities to be able to hone in your energy and spy on certain locations in the world without leaving your current location. And that has been proven to happen, to actually transpire to where it's authentic.
And they did it quite accurately.
I believe they're still doing it. There's no reason why they should have. Why would they stop?
And because I guess we first heard that the Russians were doing it, so that's why we started doing it.
Right. Okay.
And then we had these people come across, because, man, you know how it is, man. If you're someone who says that, people are like, wacky, they're wacky. Well, we don't know how far the human mind can go.
Not yet. No.
And that eye, though, the one that's in the middle of our head, what's it called?
The third eye chakra. There's a gland, actually, right in the center of your forehead that has been proven to exist, that scientists claim that they has no purpose. We are not using it.
Right. There's some people just born with stuff like that.
Right.
That knows how to use it better.
Correct. Naturally, the natural God-given gift or talent, so to speak, on how to be able to use that gland or the third eye chakra. There's more than one. Obviously, there's more than one chakra, but that third eye is the enlightened one that allows us to be able to speak with spirits.
Okay. Well, that brings me to a big question that I know is going to be a lengthy answer. How do you? Last night you were saying from your gut how do you know that you're not facing a demon?
Oh, well, that's based off instinct and
The replies, the actions.
yeah, I mean, in the way that they make us feel. There are certain indicators that will allow us to understand that we may be dealing with something with a darker energy. Now, there are human spirits that are mischievous, that were dark in life, and of course, that conscious mind goes off into the spirit realm. If you believe that, those intentions are still there from life, so they still want to do bad. They still want to be mischievous. They still want to disguise and deceive and do all these other things and make it sound like they are somebody else when they're truly not. Those are human spirits. There are dark entities out there that only want to cause anger, strife, and they're malevolent. And those could be perceived as demonic entities themselves. And once you learn the name of that demon, you have control over it, and they have to give you the name. We have the power just by mentioning the name Jesus Christ. The mere mention of the name makes them obedient, and they'll fold.
And do you feel that is? I know we're both Christians sitting here, but do you feel like though that, like you were talking about Muslims, do they have the same type of thing with their Allah? Do you think
Absolutely?
Okay.
If it's all about power of belief, there's no reason why a Muslim paranormal investigator wouldn't be protected. They have that ability. I've seen them do it and have them fearlessly chase down a jinn or a dark entity in a known haunted location and drive them out. That is very suggestive that their Allah, which in my opinion is our God too, same one, even though they don't recognize Jesus Christ as the Messiah, they recognize him as a prophet.
Right.
We're still worshiping the same God and recognizing the same God.
Okay.
So the power is the same.
And I believe to some degree, you know what? Let's don't get into religion. That's for sure.
Fair enough.
I have Muslim friends that are awesome people.
Sure.
I mean, amazing people. I mean, I do. And I have some Christian friends that are not so amazing
Yeah.
people.
I spent
But I
3
got
years.
Christian friends that are amazing people,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, I have respect for other beliefs and religions and stuff like that. And Krishna, which I've talked about on the podcast probably a little too much. People probably think that I'm a Hindu or not. Well, I guess it's Hindu. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I was raised when after I left home, and I was raised by a man who owned this place.
Well, Krishna is part of Hindi. Yeah.
Yeah, and he taught me that, you know, all over House of Blues in Memphis, we had spray painted one all over it, and that's what it meant. One, we are with the Creator.
Yeah.
That
we're all going to the same place.
Yes.
I feel like that once we get there, I'm going to be in line with a Hindu, and there's going to be a Muslim behind him and a Buddhist in front of me, and we're all going to be looking at each other and going, "Oh, we were all right. Every one of us were right. So we were all going to the same place." Right. I believe that if you live a pious life and you live for your fellow man and you want to be peaceful, and that if you truly care about your fellow man, that you should go on to a better place, that your energy, that positivity that you put out into the universe should be paid back to you in some kind.
Right. We reverberate through the masses of time. And it's so funny because of me. I have a good history, and your name's printed 1 billion times on all these records. You know, I'll live forever. Won't ever die, whatever. But I think that's with everybody. It's not because I'm a so special guy, because I just worked my butt off and I had an interest in something that printed my name.
Right. It was your passion, clearly.
My passion, and we talked earlier about reincarnation. I think it was just what I was, when I was born.
Sure.
I told Tiffany when we first got together, I'm like, hey man, I was born and this is what I am. And that's like your thing with ghost hunting. It's like, do you feel like you were born and this is what you are?
Well, Samuel Clemens or Mark Twain said it best. He had a quote that has resonated with me for some time now, he said there are two important moments in your life. The two most important moments in your life are pretty simple. It's the day that you were born and the day you find out why.
That's awesome. Yeah,
and I
haven't read that, but
since I have become a paranormal investigator and gotten into this line of work, this passion of mine, with my editing and video editing training and knowledge. Those lights just blinked, didn't they? well, the studio is haunted, so we already know that. But with that mindset, with this new direction that I'm headed in this life, midway through my life, I finally feel like I'm doing God's work on this.
Wow, that is so awesome.
And
man.
if we are able to communicate with the spirit that is not fully let go of, because as a Catholic, just got to remember there are a lot of misconceptions.
What religion
right.
you were.
So there's a lot of misconceptions about purgatory. Mm-hmm. Even though purgatory, the word is not mentioned in the Bible, the place is. So we've got to think about what purgatory is to Catholics. It's not hell. It has nothing to do with hell. Purgatory is merely a stepping stone for the spirit to be fully cleansed, purified before it's allowed into heaven. Right. Because it states in the Bible, and I don't want to get off on a tangent on quoting Bible scripture, but only purified spirits are allowed into heaven. So if that's true, purgatory would be a place where the spirit can let go of those earthly possessions, whatever it is they're hanging on to, whether that be resentment for something, an object that they adored and glorified. Because you also said you do not have any other idols but me. So if they're worshiping something, or you have all these records that you have platinums and diamonds and golds. If you truly worshipped those items, those awards and those accolades that you got, because you don't.
No.
But if you did, then you could be attached to those posthumously. Mm. And our job is to come into this studio and say, Malcolm, let go of them, man. Those were your earthly accolades. Now you've got a higher purpose. Let go, accept Jesus Christ in your heart as your Lord and Savior, and just say the words or feel it, and you can just go on. He's waiting for you on the other side, and we say that. And you said earlier that I probably would have given James Earl Ray a little bit harder of a time. It's not my job to judge. I understand what he did. And by the way, it was never proven that he shot him. He was just the right guy at the right moment. And I did a lot of fair research on this. It's kind of amazing. He never said that he did it, but he got prosecuted. So it's like, could we have gotten the wrong guy? It's possible. It's very possible.
All right.
We won't necessarily have to get into all that, but it's not my judge on this planet to be the judge. He's already been judged. Right. If he's still attached to Brushy, what an awful place for you to still be lingering. Yeah. You don't need to be there anymore. It's not even a prison. It's a prison for you now. You haven't let go. You think you're going to hell, and all you have to say is, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And then it's like magic. It truly is like magic, because it is magical.
So do you feel like all these spirits, though, are stuck in between here?
I don't necessarily think that they're stuck. Like I said, some of the spiritual entities that we come in contact with, all of the communication that we are having is by God's will. It's all being controlled by Him.
Okay, let me tell you, this is the next question, and this is a good one.
It's a real juicy, like
this,
a sandwich.
This is something that I could definitely get emotional about, and I apologize if I do.
Do it. That's fine.
My grandmother was the only funeral that I've ever been to that I felt sad because I was going to miss her, right? But everybody there was smiling. She was 96 years old. Everybody said, well, if she doesn't make it to heaven, none of us are going, because she was just an amazing woman, an amazing person, a kind heart. she had her hateful side sometimes towards certain things. And some things she made some sense, and some things I was like, well, Grandma, that was her time and age, and maybe she was right the whole time. But the whole point is, about a week after she had passed away, I got a phone call from her on my cell phone in a dream, and she was telling me that she missed me and that she's going to be around, and she's going to make sure that I'm okay.
And she probably is.
And it upset me to some degree because I feel like I was always a burden to her anyway. And because I was such a out of control rock producer, and she didn't understand it because nobody else in my family was that way. The rest of them are just straight-laced people. Very interesting. Let me tell you, my Aunt Linda and my Aunt Diane, both school teachers, both very successful, both awesome people, and lived their life, though. They would travel and they do stuff like that. But me, I was always, my brother, straight-laced, freaking went to the Navy, he's, officer, all these kind of things. Well, me, and I'm just tattooed up rock producer,
Right.
And on drugs back in the day, I had a drug problem, and she knew that, and we were open about talking about it and stuff. But her calling me, and none of my other family members, she didn't call any of them. I know it sounds silly, but do you feel that the spirit world does communicate you through your dreams?
Absolutely. There's a thing that we can refer to as lucid dreaming. Lucid dreams are dreams that, again, all of it is through God. So he's allowing us to have these dreams that are so realistic and lifelike that there may be some astral projection happening where your spiritual body is literally leaving your physical body to communicate with these spiritual entities. And by the way, and I don't mean this in any offense, as godlike and Christ-like as your grandmother probably was, none of us are sinless. She had her own.
Oh yeah, I know. She had her own thing.
She had her own going through, and it doesn't make her sins are no greater or less than the murderer sitting on death row in the prison in God's eyes. That's as Christians, and as a Catholic Christian, that's how I view
and she would
the
say
world.
the same thing. She would say the same thing.
I am no better in my thoughts and my actions. I just try to be the very best. I'm not as good as I need to be, but I'm surely is a lot better than I used to be. I'm striving every day to be the best husband that I can be, the best father to my kids that I can possibly be, the best son, the best teammate, the best friend, the best anybody that I interact with. If I'm not complimenting your life, then we don't need to be around each other.
Exactly.
And one of the rules of thumb for anyone, really, and hopefully your podcast reaches millions of people, and they remember this one thing. Do your best every day to get a thank you from a stranger. It doesn't matter what it is. Compliment them.
Yeah.
Compliment them on their tattoos or how they are dressed or how their appearance. People love feedback. Or let somebody in on traffic. Hold a door for a stranger. Gain that thank you, and you will have a more fulfilled experience on this plane of existence. And through those experiences, you're able to connect with all different kinds of spiritual entities. They will come to you because you'll be that beacon of light in that darkness. Maybe they're in the dark. And once you go down the path of spiritual awakening and become that paranormal investigator, you, like Brian Cano told me, we are those beacons of light, and they will come to us. I have no control over when they come at me, unfortunately. I can be in an antique shop. I have to be very careful what I pick up now. I can't just, mill around, whatever that expression even means. Can't just mill around in the antique store and start picking up random things.
Is that
not
Missouri?
like?
Is that
I don't know. I don't have any idea. I don't know where any of these expressions
Go
come
ahead.
from.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
all
had to say
right.
something.
So, we'll go antiquing in Southeast Missouri and Cape Girardeau. They got some really neat antique shops in downtown Cape. Cape Girardeau, Missouri is about an hour and a half south on I-55 from St. Louis. Not that far of a drive. If you're on your way to St. Louis from, say, Memphis or Nashville, it's on the way anyway. And swing by and grab some lunch because it's a neat town. And I've gone into some of these antique stores, and my experiences are always different. We took some K2s in a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, and they allowed it. They're like, oh, you can walk around with K2s. They went crazy.
Really?
Over by the military stuff. And I'm like, is there any power to these tables? You have any power going to any of these booths over here? And they're like, no, that's all militaria that's sitting over there. And we're talking like, canteens, or in the canteen cups themselves, and like pistol belts, and like, just BDUs and gear in general, like backpacks and straps and whatnot. Being that I was in the service, I feel like if we were to investigate a military compound, fort, ship, or anything that's tied to the military, as the empath on the team, as one of the stronger empaths on the team, I feel like I would be able to reach across the veil and draw those military spirits to me, where they would definitely feel comfortable around me because we speak the same language. There's only a certain percentage of folks that will serve in the military. That's 1% of the population. We're a very small percent of the population. And the military, even though we have about 1 million people in the military, it's a very small community considered the country is over 300 million people.
Right.
So.
Well, that brings me to another question. Have you been to Gettysburg?
I have not, but I will tell you this. We did do a investigation at Stars and Stripes Museum in Bloomfield. And I know for a fact that I communicated with, picked up a field jacket, which in the old terms for the battle dress uniform that we used to wear, the field jacket is a jacket. It's the overcoat that we would wear out in the field.
Right.
And I picked up a BDU jacket from the Vietnam era, and he was a Stars and Stripes reporter. And through the spirit box, we heard his last name that was on that name tape.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just,
wow. That's
and I
crazy.
I will tell you this, the one thing that gets me, that really gets me, and I've been in war twice, is hearing buddies that I've lost. And they come through, and I'll hear them, and it gets me every time. Because all he had to do was reach out. Some of the guys died in combat. Some of my guys and gals that I served with that didn't dump out all the sand from Iraq out of their boots. Yeah. And they brought some of that negative energy home, and they drowned in it. And
that's sad.
And we lost them. There's 22 veterans that we're losing on average per day to suicide. It's still happening. And it's inexcusable. They're not getting the care they need for mental health. They're being denied from the VA. You'll get me on a soapbox. But there should be programs out there right now reaching out to every veteran out there. You're not alone. I'm on Disgruntled Underground on Facebook. It's a great collaboration of veterans, and one of them reaches out. There are guys and gals that are firing back saying, we got your 6.
Well,
So, not been to Gettysburg. Get back on your tangent.
Well, no, I'm just
not
wondering.
tangent, but your subject.
I'm wondering, because I'm trying to let you talk as much as I can. I'm just asking crazy questions.
You're trying to lead this.
My great great grandfather, my grandfather's dad's dad, he died at Gettysburg. And I'm not a bad person. Everybody has their freaking relatives that fought for one side or the other, and he was fought under generally, and he died at Gettysburg.
And that's, you know what, that's okay. You're following orders.
Right. And
here's an expression that you need to hear.
I don't think it was about slavery. I think
not completely. It was about control.
It was about them, the North taxing the South. But that's a whole different subject. That's a whole different podcast. But I'm wondering if I go there with you and we do investigate, because I think that's one of the places we should go.
Absolutely.
I strongly think that's if we're going to do.
No,
what
I
we-
completely
what we've
disagree.
been-
No, I don't want to go to his back. Of course. You kidding me?
But
Twist my arm.
I'm nervous about going there because I'm wondering if his spirit's there, if he will recognize me. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous.
No. If
but
you have a connection with a battleground such as Gettysburg, if you have, see, a Poole, don't know if he's related. My last name is Poole, Poole. I had a Poole die on the USS Arizona.
right,
I don't know if he was black or white, Mexican, doesn't matter. I don't know who he was. We can't trace him through our lineage, so it may not be a relative. But
excuse me, I'm sorry.
it's all right. But if you have family that fought at Gettysburg, more than likely, if God will allow the interaction, you've already got the in for your element. Now all you need is a spiritual guide, and that's me, to facilitate that communication.
Well, let's definitely go, because I wonder about how my family would have been if he would have lived. Because I mean, I'm not talking bad about any kind of general, because people are related to people, but I'm just saying he sent them right up the middle, and that was my grandparent Paul was one of them. My grandfather was one of them, and I wonder if he would have changed a little bit of his battle plan if I hadn't have been a different outcome for me and my family.
Right.
As far as like where I lived, where I grew up, how I became is another timeline with all crazy things to say, all crazy things to think. And like I said, when you sit in a room trying to make things sound good your whole life, you have time to think about things like
Absolutely.
that. Because I'm mixing songs and I think I'm here by myself, and I'll turn on something. I try to keep my mind straight. I got a screen over here, I got a screen over there. So
Absolutely.
that way I don't ever like let my mind wander like that, because sometimes it's not healthy.
Well, think about this statement real quick. War does not determine who is right, only who is left.
War, I feel, is old men talking and young men dying.
Right. So you've got the reason why the North won. They had more men and more technology. It had nothing to do with right or wrong.
Right.
It's never about right or wrong.
Right.
We always think that, well, the North were the good guys and the South were the bad guys. No, it's not that simple. It's never going to be that simple.
Right.
That's only if you're looking at it from one angle. It's all about slavery. I'll go on record right now and tell you right now it wasn't.
It wasn't.
There's
it
no
was about
way.
money.
There was no way it was just about one subject.
Yeah.
Wars are never fought, ever, in the history of time over one thing.
Most of my best friends are black, so I don't want to say anything negative about
No.
the whole thing. That's for sure. Because you know what? The whole thing about it is the Constitution itself should have said exactly what it said was what all men are created equal.
Right.
Period.
We shouldn't have
there
slavery here in the
There
first
shouldn't
place.
have been anything here
No.
to begin with. But that's what the whole bunch of bullshit was. I mean,
Yeah.
because it was just like, how can you take somebody and make them a freaking somebody that's not free? It's like that's so asinine to me. But that's why I know I'm from another planet. You humans, your twerking, your slavery, your craziness. I just go, are you serious? Anyway, you don't twerk, do you? I'm becoming
I'm not answering that question.
I'm gonna become an expert twerker.
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Anyway.
I am. No, you don't want to see that.
Man,
I don't recommend it.
I have
Unless you want to go blind. Or you just want to.
I have one more question, and I think it's been an amazing podcast with you. Ann.
Same.
Where are you looking at yourself in 5 years from now?
Oh, that's a good question. So 5 years, Bill and I and Byron Rob spoke about where I saw the American Ghost Project 5, 10, 15 years. Short-term girls, short-term goals, long-term goals, and then like later on down the road. I don't want, right now, there is no universal online encyclopedia. You got Google. Google's a great resource for the younger generation to research, search out those answers, find out what these cryptids are, Bigfoot, the Rake, so on and so forth, Jersey Devil, and then to be able to search out the real Conjuring house. Let's talk about the Sally house in Atchison, Kansas. Let's talk about the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa. Let's find out exactly what happened at Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
So they have these online places where they can go. They can look at the deadliest 48 acres in the United States, which was Missouri State Pen in Jefferson City.
Right.
Or they can go to the end of the line in Petros, Tennessee for Brushy Mountain State Pen. But there's no online conglomerate of information, of experiences, of footage, of this happened to me. Here are personal experiences. And what I want to do with the American Ghost Project is create an online database where all of that is collected in one place and held on a server. So you've got the American Ghost Project, right? And then in turn, Europe's like, hey, that's not a bad idea. And I talked to somebody over in Germany or Italy. Like I talked to get a hold of Pitt over in Italy. That's the paranormal investigative team out of Italy. They're called Pitt. Super nice people. I've not reached them yet, but I'd love to. So you got Pitt over in Italy. They've got all of their stuff, and they start collecting. And then it becomes the Italian Ghost Project, because now it's a project. Then you have your European Ghost Project Alliance, right. And it's all under the International Ghost Project Alliance. All under one. All you got to do is just go to one site, and now I can look up Chupacabra. Now I can look up recent Bigfoot sightings. Now I can look at the map.
The crypto stuff too.
Yeah, you can look at cryptozoology. We can look at events with high strangeness that are occurring all across the globe. And now we can correlate data. Bigfoot was sighted in northwestern Oregon on a Thursday at 2:00. What else happened at Thursday at 2:00 in the same area? Oh, there was an alien. There was a UFO that was spotted nearby.
Right.
Is there a correlation? I don't know. Or maybe at that same time happened, right, at the same time, just down the road, there was a spirit spotted walking across the road. What's truly happening? Is our idea of time and space bending so much, and the veil between this world and the next becoming so thin that these events are happening, and they may be happening? Is it raining? That's interesting. So we got a little bit of ambiance.
It is raining.
So you've got these events of high strangeness happening in these collective areas. And if we can just get the American government on the same page with Brazil's government, Chile's government, Colombia's government, Mexico, Canada, you've got all these different countries that are now starting to slowly trickle out these strange, high strangeness, aliens and ghosts and all these different paranormal experiences that people are having. We're not shying away from it because it's not going to shatter my Christian belief. I already know that God was not a man and was not from this earth. So what does that make him?
Yeah, extraterrestrial.
An extraterrestrial. I can go on and talk about the fact that God's an alien. Okay, I know that sounds sacrilegious.
No,
but
it's not.
if
He's
it's
not of
not
this world.
right, if he's not from here, what does that make him by definition? I'm not saying that God is showing up as a little green man in a spacecraft. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying he's not of Earth. So if he's not of Earth,
God could show up as a little green man because he's God. He could do what he
wants
to.
He absolutely could do whatever he wants. He could be on this planet right now, and we would never know it. And as a matter of fact, I started talking about this to another paranormal investigator, a friend of mine. I said, what would happen? You get me on a soapbox. What would happen if Jesus showed up again in a different form and started preaching? Would we believe it's actually him? What proof would we need? What miracle would he be able? What would he have to do? Oh, it's faked. It's been CGI'd. There's no way.
No.
He did not cure that guy because he didn't have cancer, or that guy was not blind.
Exactly.
You're going to have skeptics all across the globe. They're going, no, it's all BS. There's no way. So right now in the technology age, Jesus could not come back and prove to us that, be like, oh, that's the Antichrist. it just wouldn't be not like it was before.
Well, I think though that he could. I think that it would be a whole different kind of thing, though.
Man, you'd have to
I think it would be more of a
knock people over the head to make them believe.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I think that the Red Sea has been parted. I can't say it on here how, because I would get in trouble about saying things bad about certain bands. But
fair enough. We are not talking about musicians that may or may not represent the same
I'm
beliefs
just saying
that we
there's
do.
been some bands that's hit hard that I go, that's like part of the Red Sea. That band should have never made it. But anyway, that's beside the point.
What kind of deal did you make to get that high?
Or maybe God just blessed them because they were good people, or the singer was such a great person.
On that note, I want to point this out to your viewers, your listeners, or whatever the case may be. People subscribe to the idea of 3 a.m. being the devil's or witch's hour. But I want to point this out. It does not exist, because somewhere on the planet at any given point in time, well, not at any given point in time, every other hour, it's 3 a.m. somewhere, just like it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. So the 3 a.m., it's not a thing.
So are you trying to point out that my mentor, Greg Archilla, one of my big mentors, mixing mentors, he mixed the Matchbox 20 record, and I second engineered for him. And
who's Matchbox 20? I'm okay.
So I didn't know if you were referring to it's 3 a.m. I must be lonely.
No,
anyway.
not at all. I did see them. I want to point this out, and I'd love to make that connection with them again. I saw them in a very small bar.
Really?
Back in the day when they performed, and they were not big yet. And when they did get big, we were like, oh, we saw them at a bar. And I knew that they were good then. I'm like, we just were like, these guys are amazing. They're going to go places. And they did.
Rob's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Super nice guy.
He's got a great voice. He's got a great vision. He's got a great energy. He gives out good frequency.
Man. He's just a good.
He grabs those songs out of the sound waves, out of the air, and they're meant for him. And they sound amazing coming out of his voice. It's perfect.
I'm definitely not going to talk about some of the things that happened. That we had a lot of fun. I mean, and it was good because Greg was mixing, and I got to hang out with him a lot and stuff like that. So I got to know him, and just a good fella. But well, man, I think we've had a great podcast, man. Yeah. I sure appreciate you coming, man. I mean,
sure.
Listen. We're going to do this again, but we're going to freaking do some ghost hunting.
Hell yes.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
And I'm nervous, but we're going to make it through this.
And that's okay to be nervous. because you know what? If you weren't a little bit hesitant, a little bit nervous, then I'd kind of worry for you, because you got to have your mind right. And if you just think that I'm going to grab a digital audio recorder and a K2, which is an electromagnetic frequency detection device that anybody can buy anywhere, get it off of Amazon. And if you think that you're going to go into one of these buildings and start walking around with a camera and interact with these spiritual entities and be okay, you better think twice. You better think 4 or 5 times, a half a dozen times, and make sure that you are right, both in the head, spiritually, emotionally, physically, the whole 9 yards. They will test every single bit of everything that makes you you, and go after whatever weakness that you have.
I think we ought to get Jackson to go in first.
You gotta have bait. First of all, you gotta have bait so they can just kind of chew on him for a little bit.
Yeah, we'll just send Jackson as his bait.
Just throw sidetrack in, and then we can just chew on him for a little bit, and they're distracted, so we can move past this area and go talk to the nice ones while he's getting munched on. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I was thinking that if the ghost mess with if the
he's
ghost
over in the he's got a thumbs up from
if the ghost mess with me, I'm just going to start twerking. That'll get rid of them all.
Start feeling something.
I'm going to start twerking. I'm going to do my twerk thing. Anyway, all right, buddy, man, awesome. Let's go. We got a meeting we got to go to.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, man. Let's do it.
See ya.
Oh, hit that subscribe button. You'll get to see more of our podcasts. Thank you very much for watching.
This is the BAM Podcast with Malcolm Springer.
Suck it.